The Rites Encyclopedia by C.V. Brony. Chapter 5. Pony Genetics, Stock and Draft Ponies. Twilight Sparkle stood in a dusty orchard of trees, equipped with her pointing stick and a chalkboard on wheels. Mesas were visible in the hot noonday sun. Her smile had faded a bit, but this was still going to be a lecture. She wasn't about to let the first few entries get her down. Hello, everybody! We're here today at the Appaloosa Ranch and Orchard to help explain the difference between stock ponies and draft ponies. This time, I have two helpers. To my right here is Applejack's cousin, Brayburn. The farm pony trotted into view, waving a hoof. Howdy, y'all! Welcome to Appaloosa! Twilight rubbed her ear. Right. Thank you, Brayburn, for letting us do this here. He blushed a bit. Aw, shucks, miss. Tain't nothing. A friend of Applejack's is a friend of mine. Twilight gave him a polite nod and singled off to her left. And over here is my brother, Shining Armor. Come on out, Shining. I can assure you it's painless. Shining's head tilted into view, looking around thoroughly before stepping next to his sister. I don't get it. How come I can see them now, but not other times? And how come I don't remember these afterwards? Twilight grinned. Much like Pinkie Pie, it's best not to try to explain it. So, everyone, here we can see an example of a stock pony, Brayburn. Howdy again, he waved. She pointed over to her brother, and a draft pony, Shining Armor. Hi. He waved too, although far less enthusiastically. Twilight continued. Now, we all know that there are, principally, 3 tribes of ponies: Earth ponies, Pegasi, and unicorns. However, each individual pony is also either a stock pony or a draft pony. These last 2 types are not tribes, however, and have absolutely no bearing on the type or intensity of magic they possess. There are, however, obviously some differences. Brayburn, if you would. Happy to oblige. He reared up on his hind legs, whinnying, then took off around the orchard. His legs pounded on the ground, pushing him faster and faster as he weaved through the trees without even slowing down. Shining chuckled. Yeah, no way I could do that. As we can see, Twilight pointed with her stick, Brayburn, a stock pony, possesses considerable agility and acceleration. As an Earth pony, he can also use his magic to become quite fast on the ground. Not as fast as a Pegasus in the air, of course, but still. Yee-haw! Brayburn turned around and ran back towards the other 2, but angled for a nearby tree. Just before running straight into it, he stopped, spun around, and slammed both of his rear hooves into the tree, knocking down most of the apples into some surrounding baskets. Twilight poked her brother in the side with the stick. Shining, meanwhile, is a draft pony, which is easily the more rare of the 2 types. They comprise less than 5% of the population, and most of them, by far, are male. There are, of course, female draft ponies, but they aren't nearly as common. Now then, Shining? Are you sure about this, Twilight? He asked, rubbing his head. I'm not an Earth pony. She nodded. Yes, apple bucking itself doesn't really use any Earth pony magic beyond normal strength enhancement. You'll be fine. He sighed. All right, here goes nothing. Shining lifted his hind legs up into the air and slammed them into the tree. Several of the apples from above fell down into the baskets. While not as many fell as Brayburn's, there were still a good number of them. See, brother? Shining lifted up a basket and looked into it. Huh. Well, guess it worked. Twilight cleared her throat. What Shining lacks in Earth pony magic and practice apple bucking, he makes up for with his draft pony physiology and strength training from the military. Draft ponies are larger, sturdier, and have both greater strength and stamina than stock ponies. Obviously, there are outliers for everything, and this is just a general trend, but it often holds true. While draft ponies aren't as nimble or fast, They hit like nothing else and are almost impossible to knock over via physical impact without completely lifting them off their hooves. As I said earlier, any tribe and gender can be either type of pony. Other examples of draft stallions are Fancy Pants, Big Macintosh, and both Grand General Blueblood and Prince Blueblood. Examples of stock ponies include all of the Elements of Harmony, Soren of the Wonderbolts, Caramel, Thunderlane, and my parents. Shiny gets a draft pony gene from our father. Shining cut in. A lot of draft ponies find their way into the military. Our size and strength makes the training a bit easier for us. Not to say stock ponies can't be great soldiers. Basic training just usually winds up being a bit easier, is all. Finding horseshoes that fit, though. Twilight chuckled. You and those ultra-wide hooves. Anyway, that's all for the topic at hoof. Thanks, you two. Anytime, y'all, Brayburn yelled, tossing his hat into the air and taking off into a gallop, the Stetson somehow floating back down in his direction so he could catch it again. Anything you need, Twilight. Shining gave his sister a quick hug, then walked off camera. Twilight picked up a piece of chalk. Okay, normally this would be the part where we part ways for the next episode, but I've decided to liven things up a bit. Starting next episode, you readers are going to have something of a say in what topics we cover. We aren't opening all the topics, as there are still plenty of things in the story left to spoil. Instead, we're going to be supplying a list of possible topics and letting everyone vote for them in the comments. The first thing you'll all notice is that these are arranged in groups. Within each group, the uppermost topic has to be discussed before we can discuss anything below it. In other words, with a group like this, the chalk lifted into the air and started writing on the board. Magic items, enchanted objects, court artifacts, question mark, question mark, question mark, locked until unknown, question mark, locked until unknown. Well, if this topic, magic items, is chosen, we'll do enchanted objects first. Then we'll hold another vote. If this group of topics is chosen again, we'll do court artifacts. Once that's done, the third topic will be revealed. Now, you'll note that topics 5 and 6 in this group are locked until unknown. This means that we can't reveal or talk about this until sometime in the future, when certain things are revealed in the main story, or just until the author is confident enough in the answer. Some things will say locked until block X. What this means is that there is something in that block that has to be posted in the main story before we can talk about it. To help prevent spoilers, only the relevant block of chapters is listed, not the specific chapter. It could, potentially, unlock at any point in the block. You won't know in advance until a chapter posts and, suddenly, there's a new unlocked topic. Naturally, locked topics cannot be voted for, as this story would never go anywhere if that happened. And, as the story progresses, new topics will be added. It should go without saying that the things are subject to change at any time, but I'm mentioning it now anyway. Oh, and you can find out what block a given chapter is in using CV Brony's user page. There's a thing under the bio box where you can see the word counts, and he updates them whenever there's new writing. All the recent and upcoming chapters are listed there. So, without further ado, here's the current list. I'm going to be copying and pasting that down in the description instead of reading it aloud here. Twilight smiled. We are looking forward to your votes and comments, everyone. Author's note. So yeah, that's a thing here now. You guys can steer the direction of this one a little bit. I can't just open it up to everything, because there's so much I can't talk about yet, as you can see by how many are locked. There's even more topics I can't even put up here yet. Here's how it works. You guys vote for one of the topics by commenting in the, well, comments. The things in -X- are what you're choosing. Those are the topics. One will win, and eventually I'll write for that one. The thing I'll cover is the topmost item in the list that hasn't been covered yet. Some items will need several chapters to fully cover. After it's covered, we'll hold another vote. The question marks will be cleared and the item revealed when the item above it has been fully covered. Some of them that are locked might remain censored until they're unlocked, though, just to prevent spoilers. I can't wait to see how you guys vote. Little voice in the back of my head. You are so going to regret posting this. The Rites Encyclopedia by C.V. Baroni. Chapter 6. Pony Genetics. Tribe Hybrids. Okay, time for tribe hybrids, Twilight said, tapping her pointing stick on a board behind her. On it were 6 circles arranged equidistant from each other, with one more in the center. Together, they showed the possible tribe combinations, or lack thereof. First and foremost, there are 3 pony tribes: Earth Ponies, Pegasi, and Unicorns. Most ponies are just one of these. However, occasionally a hybrid of 2 tribes will be born. And yes, a pony's tribe or tribes is always determined in the womb, unless they ascend to alicornhood. The chalk floated up and drew lines connecting Earth Pony and Pegasus to a circle in between them. First off, we have the heavy Pegasi, or Earth Pony and Pegasus hybrids. These ponies are typically a bit slower and clumsier in the air than their Pegasi counterparts, but between their magics, they're absurdly durable. A good example of a heavy Pegasus is... A blonde-maned, gray-coated Pegasus flew into the scene and landed, her walleyes looking gleefully at the audience. "Hello, every pony!" "Hi, Ditsy-Doo," Twilight smiled. "Still on the mail route?" "Yup. Good thing I got the job when I did, too. They're cutting the pensions of the newer guys." Twilight cringed. "I wonder if I can do anything about something like that," she thought. Ouch. Well, there's that. How's Dinky? "She's doing good. She's got a scholarship to Manhattan University. Good thing, too. I kinda doubt I'd be able to afford it otherwise. Still, I knew she'd be okay. She's a smart filly." "That she is." Twilight turned back to the camera. "Anyway, Ditsy-Doo here, aka Derpy, is a heavy Pegasus, and they're called that no matter what their real weight is, although they do tend to have more mass than normal Pegasi. Also, out of all Pegasi, about 1 in 20 are this type. This ratio has gone up a bit in the last few hundred years, but has since leveled out. They have all the plant-growing abilities of Earth Ponies, and can fly like Pegasi, although they aren't considered the best flyers out there. Still, that's a trend, not a rule. Practice can overcome a lot. "Thanks for coming, Ditsy." The heavy Pegasus saluted. "Yes, ma'am, and thank you for all the muffins." Then she leapt into the air and flew out the door, narrowly avoiding crashing into the door along the way. Twilight smiled. "She's gotten better. Okay, next up we have the Earth Unicorns, and I'm proud to say that we have a second, newly featured character for Rites to demonstrate them. Everyone, please welcome the singing sensation, Crystal Belle." An adult, white unicorn mare with a long, curly, purple and pink mane stepped into view. Inside her meticulously styled mane was a bevy of blue crystals chiming amongst each other, turning her very movements into song. "Thank you for inviting me, Twilight," she said with a bow and a smile. "I was worried I'd never get to be on anything in Rites. Although, you can call me Sweetie Belle. My friends from Ponyville are much too important to use that stage name." Her new voice was as smooth as polished ice, and much lower and operatic than the one she had as a little filly. "All right, fair enough. And thank you for coming." Twilight turned back to her audience. "Okay, every pony, Sweetie Belle here is an Earth Unicorn, a hybrid of Earth Pony and Unicorn." The chalk floated up and drew 2 more lines. Twilight continued. "They tend to be stronger and sturdier than regular unicorns, and like their Earth Pony cousins, are capable of using their magic to help plants grow. Hence, they can make excellent farmers, having both unicorn and Earth Pony magic. In addition, Earth Unicorn doctors are also widely sought after. Their healing magic is beyond compare. Naturally, though, this doesn't mean they have to go into those fields. She winked at her guest. I'm glad I didn't. It took me long enough to find my cutie mark. She looked over at her flank, where a blue crystal bell with a pink ribbon and a music note was emblazoned. Getting one in biology? Not exactly my strong suit. I'd have been miserable. Twilight couldn't help but grow a smile. Didn't I tell you it would come in time? Anyway, once again, thank you for appearing. It's my pleasure, Twilight. Come see one of my shows sometime. A Grand Mage should rate some VIP tickets, I think. She winked and started walking off stage. I'll take you up on that offer. Twilight drew 2 more lines on the board, this time connecting Unicorn and Pegasus to a circle labeled Winged Unicorn. Okay, last up we have the Winged Unicorns, second only to alicorns in how rare they are. Twilight looked up at the ceiling. Cadence, you can come. A pink winged unicorn circled in the air, eventually coming to a light landing on one hoof. Hello, Twilight. As the others did, I must thank you for inviting me. Not that there are many other winged unicorns. This is true. Twilight cleared her throat. In fact, in all of Equestria, there are only a few dozen in existence. The reason why we'll get into in a moment. For now, Winged Unicorn Basics. Cadence sat down and opened her wings. Although we have both Pegasus and Unicorn magic, our wellspring sizes vary at about the same spread as that of a normal unicorn. I'm well above average, obviously, but this is not the case for all of us. We do, however, possess the capability to use much more magic at once than most unicorns, but this comes with a risk. If we overextend our wellsprings by pulling magic from them too quickly when they're empty, we'll suffer something called horn blowout. It's the same as taking a large magical blast to the tip of our horn, and is a serious medical emergency. Though death from it is rare, it can lead to crippling complications if not treated. Twilight picked up the thread. As for Pegasus magic, they're more or less normal Pegasi. However, with that out of the way, we now have to talk about the why of tribe hybrids. Specifically, why some are hybrids, but most aren't. Although heavy Pegasi and Earth unicorns aren't anywhere remotely as rare as winged unicorns, they still don't make up much of the population, as simple genetics would suggest. Cadence smiled. You always did like lecturing, Twilight. How's it feel to be a professor of sorts? Twilight ducked down and blushed. Cadence, come on. Not you too. Heh. Sorry, Twilight. I couldn't resist. Please, continue. Right, well. She took in a deep breath and slowly let it out. Okay, the reason is, actually, just like alicorns gain attributes of the other races during ascension, so too does the magic from a hybrid's wellspring matter. In fact, there are many ponies out there with the genetic markers for being a hybrid, yet they aren't. The answer lies in something called wellspring geometry. A pony's wellspring doesn't begin to form until a couple of months into gestation in its mother's womb. The process for it to form fully takes a bit more time, and during that, the ley lines in its body begin to connect to the wellspring. Only specific configurations will work for hybrids. If the geometry of the wellspring doesn't form in just the right way, the ley lines won't connect, and that part of the wellspring will grow dark, and the other's ley lines will fade. They'll only receive the magic and physical traits of the connections that do form. There are relatively few valid geometric configurations for hybrids. In fact, for winged unicorns, there are only 3, compared to dozens for other hybrids and hundreds for non-hybrids of all types. This is why they are so rare. Cadence flapped her wings a little. 'Tis a shame. I would have liked to have grown up with some pony else like myself, but I do admit to enjoying being somewhat special. That's not what makes you special, Cadence. The two turned their heads to the side, finding Shining striding into the room. Your kindness, love, and work for your ponies as Princess of the Lost is what makes you special. Others would adore you just the same, even without the wings or the horn. Aww, Cadence began to tear up, and gave him a big hug. That's so sweet! Thank you, Shining! He smirked. That, and you have an amazingly hot pair of flanks. I mean, wow. And don't you forget it, mister, she laughed into his ear. Twilight rolled her eyes. Okay, that's enough for this entry. We're already over our time limit. Thanks everyone for reading, and don't forget to comment and vote. Nothing new unlocked at this time. Author's note. I'm not entirely happy with the phrase Earth Unicorn, to be honest. Feel free to suggest something better. I'm very picky, so there's no guarantee I'll use what you suggest, but I'm definitely open to ideas. I'm trying to avoid heavy unicorn. Remember, you're voting for the thing in the dashes. I had forgotten how Shining could see the audience and got really freaked out by it. That was a fun thing to remember. I also find it interesting that basically the hybrids are just better than at least one of the two races that they are a hybrid of. Heavy Pegasi, for example, are not necessarily just better than normal Pegasi, but they are pretty much just better than normal Earth ponies in every way. Earth Unicorns seem to just be better than either because they have both abilities with no drawbacks to either side. And, as long as a winged unicorn doesn't overextend themselves, they have everything of both of theirs. And then if they choose to, they can go a little further while taking some risks. Interesting. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I hope you had a pleasant time, and I wish you all a happy day. Bye!